Matthew provides many specific details about the prophecies regarding Jesus' birth. But unlike Luke and Mark, he actually offers very, very little as far as the actual birth of Jesus. As we roll into chapter 2 of Matthew, we read this: Mary brought forth her firstborn son. And that's basically all we get. Matthew then fast forwards to Jesus as a young child, when the wise men from the east come to visit. Now, yesterday, we encountered two titles of Jesus: Savior, Emmanuel. And today we get another one in chapter 2, verse 2, the King of the Jews. A contrast is struck between Joseph, the descendant of King David that we read about yesterday, with the current king, Herod. If you recall, we learned that Joseph was a just, faithful man, devoted to Mary, obedient to God, not quick-tempered, but merciful. And Joseph was also of the best lineage possible. Contrast that with what we learn in chapter 2 about Herod, that he is cunning and deceitful, dishonest, fearful, wicked. But even with the most wicked of sinners, that never stands in the way of God's plan. Matthew records that the wise men from the east continued to follow the star till it stood over where the young child was. You see, the true king was accompanied by his own star. Of course, they are all his stars, but this star was what led the wise men to where the Christ child was. The wise men from the east rejoiced, and with exceedingly great joy, it says in verse 10. An indication that this was a moment not just of amazement of the natural phenomenon of a star that would lead them to a place, but it was also a source of deep fulfillment for the wise men, who were obviously searching and researching and looking for this event to happen. They fell down and worshiped the true king, Jesus, not Herod. They presented their gifts to the worthy king, even though he was a child. They didn't give gifts to Herod that we know of. Now, interestingly, we learn in this chapter, in verse 4, that the chief priests and scribes of the people knew from the book of Micah that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, and that he would be a ruler and a shepherd of his people, Israel. But for the Jewish leadership, we need to understand this. This was simply head knowledge, not saving faith. They were lawyers who knew the letter of the law, but they had no grip on the spirit of the law. And so this was just information to them. In contrast, let's learn from the wise men and the example that they set. Number 1, be prepared for the Lord's coming. Number 2, be joyful in God's presence. 3, be ready to worship the King. And lastly, number 4, offer Jesus your best.